Berlin. There we go. Maybe I've forgotten the name and the address of everyone I've ever known. It's nothing I regret. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday evening. I'm Kevin Graham. He's Russell Boyce. And we are now floating in Screamacelica. Russell, do you think that's a bit of a new order there? Regret?
I like that.
Do you think, will we be regretting signing Joe Hart and James McCarthy?
Well, I think we had to bring it up today because it's a huge day when Celtic sign two players on the same day, and it's not the 31st of January, Kev, you know, for a start.
Correct.
I think we will live to look at these both decisions, and I'm hopeful we've got both right this time. And I've said quite a few times, I think short-termism has to be looked at whilst you can have a long-term vision for where your team wants to go. You always need to deal in the here and now. And I'm convinced that both these players have been signed in the design of, short-term gain, because they're two players they're straight out the wrapper into the team, aren't they? Let's be honest.
Definitely, and it's, as you say, it's bizarre for us to sign guys that we've actually heard of from clubs that we've actually heard of nowadays, and they're weighty signings. For me, they're weighty signings, and they're up there with two of the biggest names to appear in Scottish football, at least over the last 5 years. For us, anyways, probably since Scott Sinclair. With terms of the weight of experience, the kudos that the two names bring to the Scottish game, to Celtic. And it's like, it feels like we've been trying to sign James McCarthy since 2012, right enough. And that's us just managed to get it over the line. But Joe Hart, the last time I saw Joe Hart in the flesh, Lee Griffiths was putting 2 free kicks past him at Hampden. So what I like about both deals are long-term deals. One's 3 years and one's 4 years. It shows that both guys are absolutely committed to the project, to the club, and I just think it's a decent bit of business. On paper, it's a decent bit of business. Obviously, we don't know how it's going to turn out, but hey, we've signed guys with a bit of pedigree. And,
real pedigree.
And what we're actually going to need to admit, and we will admit this, I'll admit this, no problem whatsoever, is the reason that they're here is because they are slightly damaged goods. That's the reason that they've rocked up at Celtic Park. And I'm not. That's fair enough with me. That is fair enough with me. I know their level. I know the level of Scottish football. But what I'm quite pleased about is both guys have showed a bit of commitment to come to Celtic. Joe Hart has took what will be a massive wage cut to come to Celtic if the reported wages are true, and I was going to call him Mick McCarthy there. James McCarthy. James McCarthy. I probably will have also had, if the rumours are true, James McCarthy has probably turned down better basic wages to come to Celtic also, to come to his boyhood club. What do you think of that, Russell?
I think you're spot on, and you know something? There's nothing wrong sometimes with going for guys that are, as you might say, damaged goods. I think too often we've went for the potential project, and when they come off, we can all sit and gloat and go, look at the profit on that, look what they achieved and look at the profit. But for every one of them, like we've said before, there has been another one that's been an absolute dud and hasn't helped the cause at all. And I just feel that, but I've said this, honestly, we are in a war this year, to try and win that title back. We need people that are going to be able to hit the ground running and that get what this crazy world we operate in Scottish football is. And it is bonkers. And I'm not saying oh God, how could you patronise people and say they all need to adapt to Scottish football, which is a backwater or whatever? Scottish football, to me, has its mad own, entity. It doesn't even operate. I know it gets coefficient points, but really, it's got its own point system that's completely different to anything else you see in any other league. And I just feel with Joe Hart coming in, for a player in the slide who may well, his best shot stopping days perhaps are behind him. And I've seen more analytics today, which was a bugbear of mine at times, because what they're saying is he was in the bottom 3%, I think I read today, for shots, long shots saved or expected shots saved or something like that in Europe from his 10 games last year. The flip side is, what you'll never get a stat for is the amount of times a headed ball is being cleared by a defender because Joe Hart told him where to go. And that is going to happen. Well, Joe Hart will talk for 90 minutes, those players through the game. That's the difference. Is he as good as what he used to be? Obviously not, otherwise we don't get him. But could we resurrect him? I don't know. If he gets the bit between his teeth and for the first time in a long time feels the number one at a club on a long-term deal, which he's not had since Man City, because he went to Torino and was first choice, but it was on loan. Mm-hmm. I think you could get something there. James McCarthy's coming here to prove every single person what they missed, and that I told you I wanted to sign for you the whole time. That is what he's going to come, and because he's such a big Celtic fan, he's got a title to try and win back. And I think you'll watch him in an inspired role this season as well. And there's nothing that strikes me with James McCarthy to say he could not be that replacement for Scott Brown that we have been crying out for. Maybe not just since the summer, by the way. Maybe a wee bit longer than that. But at 30 years old, he can come in and be that huge influence in the team. And I know bit of dig sounds a bit lazy. I get all that these days. That's not terms people like. But one thing he also is very good at is when he gets the ball, it's extremely effective as well. I would expect both players to become mainstays of the team going forward.
I think both bring weight of experience and character. I think you're right what you say about Joe Hart. Joe Hart brings a presence that, unfortunately for us, Barkas and Scott Bain, and unfortunately for them, haven't shown over the last 18 months since Fraser Foster left. So I think both guys have got an opportunity here to resurrect, as you say. I am the resurrection and I am the light to resurrect their career. Steve MC10 says, well chuffed with our business today. That seems to be the general opinion, Steve. Everybody seems to be quite happy with it anyway. Yeah. The majority of fans seem happy with it. Drew Mac FC, loving the irrationals. I think that he means being you, Russell. We're the irrationals. And because Drew actually called the panel today on the bulletin the rationals. So we're the irrationals.
We're the irrationals. I want to be irrational. That's just my character just down to the ground, Drew. Thank you, mate.
I'm happy with that. Michael the boy, Craig Gordon rescued his career at Celtic, so no reason why Hart can't and McCarthy can't either. I completely agree with that as well. We're not taking you take a chance signing any player.
Agreed.
But it's true. Nobody expected Craig Gordon to go on and achieve what he achieved when we signed him from Celtic. It's
nice to have a couple of thoroughbreds in, though. Do you know what I mean? That are distinguished careers already behind them. But still, 34 for a goalkeeper is no age at all these days. Absolutely nothing. And 30 years old for a midfielder who's, I know what Michael's saying, injury prone there, but also when he's fit, he knows how to get to a fitness level of EPL standards for over a decade now, or around a decade. He's been operating at that level. You know, you look at the clubs and Wigan, Everton, Crystal Palace, has he ever been relegated? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No, because I think he went to Everton for about 13 million at one point.
The Facebook user comes in, he kind of backs up what we're saying, Russell. 75 caps for England. Yes, he's not had a great few seasons, granted, but he's a massive addition to the current squad. And in my opinion, puts a bit of confidence back in the Celtic team, knowing that calibre of player is in the sticks.
Again, you look at it, Kev. you look at Welsh and you look at Murray, and we're all for it. We've advocated on this show and on ACSOM loads of times. It's brilliant to see young Celtic players getting a chance, Kev, isn't it? Brilliant to see. But what chance have you got when the goalie's silent behind you and he puts the fear of God up you any time the ball crosses the halfway line?
Well, that was one thing Ange says before the Michelin game last week, Russell. He says that he put in Bain because he needed his voice, he needed his presence, he could talk to the back four. And I went, well, that just shows you that Barkas doesn't communicate. And that was the only reason Bain seemed to get the nod over him. And does that explain why Bain got the nod over him last year as well eventually? Because Bain was more a communicator.
Than
Barkas, eh? So we just need to wait and see what's going to happen. But you were talking about thoroughbreds there. And we're going back to the 30th of July 2000. But first, I need to bring up your tracksuit top.
Yes, mate. Try to get it right in the right angle. Look at that. That's the clue to the show.
The vibe I'm getting is Cool Runnings. One of the greatest films ever made. That is the vibe that I'm getting.
Nice one,
Jamaica's never had a bobsleigh team. Well, they have now, and Russell's got the tracky top to absolutely prove it. Aye, we're back to the 30th of July 2000. And this is an area where we like to go back to because it's a happy time. It's a happy place. It's when you go to the meditation and they go, thank you, your happy place.
It's a wee comfort blanket, isn't it?
As a comfort blanket to go here. It's the first game of the 2000-2001 season, and it's Mark O'Neill's first domestic game in charge. And we're going to Tannadice. And one of the things that I had forgot about this season, and when I started researching this was the first season that the Premier League, or the Premiership as it's now called, had went to 12 teams. And Aberdeen had been saved from relegation the previous season when they finished bottom of the 10-team league. And it was just weird reading. It was weird reading that again. I forgot about that. I think that was the second time that Aberdeen survived relegation because of league reconstruction. It's quite mad to feel to think of Aberdeen. Obviously, they were terrible round about that point. But the fact is, like, they should have got relegated that season and didn't they? It's still a bit of a stomach punch for a guy who, like me, who grew up in the 80s.
Well, the fact is as well, I mean, you look at Aberdeen then, it's a lot closer to them when they won the Cup Winners' Cup than what it is if Aberdeen were chronic, even 5-6 years ago, which they've not been. It's quite funny to think they dropped so low, not relatively that long after they were one of the kings of Europe by winning one of the big trophies. It is interesting that Dundee United, who we play, finish 11th this season, but I don't know how with Alan Cumming goes. The best goalie performance I've ever seen in my life.
It was a great performance by Alan Cumming this day. Facebook user comes in. Falkirk were messed over again. Partick via AFC and a nick. I think what he actually means there, Aberdeen survived because Falkirk didn't have a stadium and they couldn't ground share with somebody. I think that's what happened.
It was you had to have a minimum. This is when the SPL brand they were trying to promote was, but they just got all the fundamentals wrong, Kev. They made it a minimum requirement to have a 12,000-seater stadium to become an SPL club, thus turning it. Oh, it's Suey, yes.
It's Suey, aye.
Thus turning it into an exclusive members club for 12 out of your top 16 teams, really. And if you're out with the top 16, you've got no chance of being in the league. Whereas most progressive countries, Kev, want you to be promoting, you need to have X amount of under-21s or players that have came through your squad in there and use your money on your academy. You need to have a proper academy to get in the league. We want to do it on stadium numbers that, let's be honest, half the leagues that are in there don't get anyway. So what a strange, backward, stupid movement that was. And I'm not sure if it still exists in the SPL.
It's not in place anymore because Inverness came up, Inverness.
It got dropped though. It got dropped at one point to 8,000, I'm sure.
Inverness, the club that basically the Scottish League created. If you ever go back and read the story of Inverness, Caledonian Thistle, then basically they were. I'm not beating about the bush here. The owners were basically bribed by the Scottish League and told, merge their two clubs, you're going to get into the Scottish League. So merge Inverness, I can't even remember the two teams' names, Inverness Thistle and Inverness Caledonian, funnily enough. Merge their two teams and you're guaranteed to get a place in the Scottish League. Now that was the what happened. There was basically bribery going on and stuff like that. It's a horrible situation. But then Falkirk Stadium's in the Grangemouth Blast Zone. That's how they're having to got a stand on one side.
That's so that'll never change.
That'll never change. They can't get planning permission. They can't get planning permission for a stand down that side of the goals because it's in the Grangemouth Blast Zone. So
that is blowing my mind.
That is Scottish football at its best, though.
Yeah, I've been once, and you know what? It's funny because the SPL, gave Falkirk rules. They needed a certain size stadium. Rod Stewart didn't, and I think Rod Stewart's a bit bigger than half the SPL. You know what I mean? And he was quite happy to play at the old Falkirk Stadium. So take note, Roger Mitchell, if you're watching now, you made a complete mistake doing that.
So has Little Mix. My daughter's been to see Little Mix twice at the Falkirk Stadium. And did Elton John no play there as well?
Yeah, he did.
Elton
he did.
John
I didn't go to that, but he did play.
The Rocket Man himself. So let's get back. Paul's brought up a comment. A State of Mind is just 13 subs short of 13,600 on YouTube. This month's prize is a Fratelli's Costello Music Platinum disc, which has been presented to John Fratelli. So last month we had the Urban Hymns a platinum disc prize, and that was won by Mick Nolan from Belfast. So Mick's going to get a great prize. So this is a great prize this month as well. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and tell other people to subscribe to go into a prize draw to win this fantastic platinum disc.
And if ever you needed evidence that the draw isn't rigged, think of what the postage will be for poor Paul. I'm going to send the Urban Hymns platinum disc all the way to Belfast. So you can't say we don't play fair.
He would be cheaper driving it to Belfast himself, getting into the State of Mind mobile and just driving it to Belfast to hand deliver it than what it's going to cost to post it. Is there a Brexit tax?
No, I don't know.
Customs and excise. Drew MACFC. I still hate Mick Nolan. I think there's a lot of people who are not hate but are extremely jealous of Mick Nolan at this precise moment in time.
But now, it's another fantastic prize this month. That's the thing. It just shows you hit a subscribe button, you're in with a chance to win unique prizes, stuff that no one else can possibly have, because that is it.
We're not giving away replica kits here. No way. We're giving away one-offs. We're giving away one-offs.
You know it.
You spoke about thoroughbreds earlier on, and Martin O'Neill's a thoroughbred, but this was the debuts for Chris Sutton and Hughes Valharn. And we spoke about Big Hughes a couple of weeks ago. So I think we really need to actually focus on Big Sutton tonight, because I sometimes don't think Big Sutton gets the credit he deserves for the number of years he was at Celtic and how he was a mainstay of Martin O'Neill's Celtic. He was, looking back now, he was a statement signing when you actually look back on it. So at this time, Big Yoss had signed on the Friday for £3.8 million and went straight into the team on the Sunday.
From Rhoda JC?
From Rhoda JC, that's it. Steve Walford had also arrived, part of Martin O'Neill's backroom team. So he had arrived during the week, so he joined the backroom team, which was, as I've said plenty of time, at that point was Tommy Burns and Matt Reaper, who had just announced his retirement from playing as well. I don't remember we spoke about Reaper. Was that last week? We
Yes.
spoke about Reaper, aye. So he had just announced his retirement for playing this week also, before this game, and he was part of the backroom staff as well. And we were also getting linked with new goalkeepers on a day that we signed a new goalkeeper. We were getting linked with Richard Wright, the Ipswich goalkeeper, who ended up going to Arsenal. And another Australian, Mark Bosnich, was the two goalkeepers that we were getting linked with. Again, Richard Wright was a cracking goalkeeper at that time.
Am I right in thinking Mark Bosnich was at Man United then again? Was he back there? I know he'd been at Villa, or has he just joined? Because he joined Chelsea, I think, instead of us.
I'm not 100% sure. I would have said he was at Villa. Maybe would say he was at Villa.
Maybe he just joined Chelsea that summer, but he was definitely at Chelsea. I always had it in my head that he went to Chelsea when we were linked with him, but I didn't know if he'd went back to Man U for it, because I'm sure he had a cameo. I knew he was at Man U before Villa, and then I think he went back and had a cameo year there, but I can't remember when it was. But I mean, you look at the quality of those keepers, and Celtic were just operating at a level again that we hadn't really seen. I know Berkovic joined for 5.75 million the year before, so he was still even in this lineup, the second highest transfer fee we've ever paid. Like you just felt Celtic this game, the first of that season, we were a side just about to enter a new stratosphere, if you like, for what Celtic supporters were used to.
I mean, again, Richard Wright didn't have a very good time at Arsenal, if I remember correctly, when he ended up going to Arsenal. And Mark Bosnich's career sort of downward spiralled, and from his peak in the mid-90s to this point. But you can show that we signed Chris Sutton, and when I was reading the match report for this game, the journalist actually wrote England's international striker Chris Sutton, the £6 million man, scored his first goal for Celtic. So he was still classed as an England internationalist at this point, even though he never had a cap. It was only a B internationalist, but it was still a top quality signing.
Did he ever get a cap?
No, he played a B international. Am I getting that wrong? He got a cap. Then he was.
I'm sure he was capped.
He got a cap. Then he was asked to play a B internationalist.
Told Glenn Hoddle,
and he told Glenn Hoddle to stuff it, and he was never considered again. But
do you know why he did that? He was joint top scorer in the EPL at that time with Robbie Fowler. And yet I've read Sutton's book. The strikers chosen, though, now I might get one of these wrong, right? You know I might. But I think the strikers chosen was like Sheringham, Andy Cole, and there was one other one, Les Ferdinand, I think it might have been, that you're like, wait now. And they were still getting picked ahead, even though he was currently, and I think he'd won the Golden Boot with Norwich before that. So he was an established striker. He won the Golden Boot with Norwich. He then wins the league with Blackburn. And then in 97, 98 sort of period under Hoddle, he's still basically sixth choice. He's sitting there going, wait now. And he don't think I'll be playing for the Bees.
Sui comes in and says Heskey.
Nah, not at that point.
No,
not at that point. No, it's Heskey. Heskey was someone that, see if Emil Heskey hadn't played for England at the World Cup 2002, and they'd picked a guy who'd just been the main reason, other than Henrik himself, that he scored 53 goals the year before, right? England would have been a far better team, because what a foil Sutton would have been for Michael Owen at that World Cup 2002. I mean, he's streets ahead of Heskey, streets ahead. But at the time when he declined, Hoddle, it was, you looked at the list, you thought he's joint top scorer with Fowler, and I think ironically Fowler wasn't getting many starts for England either. I think that it seemed like Hoddle had his favourites. Sorry, I'm away doing that.
I like going down rabbit holes, man. You're probably right there. I mean, he kept on picking Darren Anderton.
Do you know when Shearer played at Euro '96 against the first game they played against Switzerland? I think England did. He hadn't scored an international goal for over 2 years.
It's funny how
he was always picked.
It's funny how tournaments can change players as well. I remember World Cup '86, Gary Lineker, when he was getting abuse off the English press, then he scored that hat-trick against Poland, and that was him. His England career basically took off at that point.
Wow.
So sometimes it shows you if a manager's got faith in you and this keeps on going back to you, he can eventually come good. Jim Hanaway says, Big Chris hasn't changed then. No, but Big Sutton's always batted with a straight bat. He always has. He's never missed any targets. And as was shown over his number of years at Celtic, where he was a tough, uncompromising character both on and off the park. There's been some stories about, but he has got a sense of humour.
Dry.
He has got a sense of humour. I've been fortunate enough. Me and Paul, I'm going to do the job of the stars here, that we've done a couple of gigs with Chris Sutton, and I can quite safely say that his TV persona is an amplified version of himself. It is a persona. It is not.
The feeling.
If you know what I mean, if you meet Chris Sutton, he's not the Chris Sutton you see on the TV being uncompromising character. It is a sort of persona that is honed to be on the telly. I think sometimes you need that. I think sometimes you've got to make like Robbie Savage as a class clown. That's how he keeps on getting the gigs. Ian Wright is Ian Wright. He's just this bubbly, overactive thyroid who just keeps on getting on the.
Mika Richards just laughs at everyone.
Aye,
but he seems like someone you would want to spend company with. That's a brilliant trait to have. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're right. They've all got their own wee traits, haven't they? Which don't necessarily mean that's exactly what they're like. No, I get what that means. No, that's a fair point.
Big Chris, as that decision shows, I'm refusing a B cap. He shows he's a man of principle, a man of conviction, and the fact that he made the move to Celtic when he could have stayed in England showed the amount of faith that he had in Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill's dairy tongue getting him to Celtic, talking him into it, saying, "Come to Celtic, I'll resurrect your career." And in the 66th minute of this game, he scored the first goal for Celtic. Now, the previous season, we had finished 21 points behind, I think it was.
21, I'm sure it was.
The worst season in the last 20 years until last season. And from the first whistle that day, we were a different animal, a completely different animal, Russell.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Just quickly, I'll touch on the fact you mentioned 66th minute, because it's funny how much your brain plays tricks with you. When I watched the highlights, I could have sworn that goal was in the last 10 minutes of the game. And so I was like, 66? I thought it was like a late winner for some reason. But anyway, that's another story. There's a moment where Alan Stubbs is involved in a bit of a tangle, shall we say. But it's full throttle tackler. And then before you know it, Stubbs has 3 Celtic players around him outside the Dundee United box. And it could have escalated. It didn't. But what you seen then was the sign of things to come. Celtic had became a team of men. And they were also a team of men who happened to be extremely hard. And that all just went hand in hand. And they were basically now saying the days of being bullied are over. And it's very poignant when you watch the highlights. I know it wasn't a big moment in the game by any stretch. But see, when you watch the highlights back, Kev, you look with a different set of, a different lens, don't you? And you look, and I went, look at the reaction there. Boom, 3 players round. Stubbs is like raging. 2 other players are now in. there's now 3 Dundee United players. It could have escalated, it didn't. But you just thought, this is like 18 minutes gone. And you thought, that was the sign of things to come. Not only is this team going to get all the belief in their ability, where they've been told Martin O'Neill to not be scared, and they've been told by Martin O'Neill to stamp your authority in more ways than one. That became really, really poignant when you were watching it.
Compare that to the tackle by the poor podcast host on Saturday night on our captain, and the only person to react was the captain. The only person
Unbelievable difference, mate.
Was the captain. There was nobody there in Halliday's face. There was nobody there actually like backing the captain up, and it was quite strange. Before the game started on Saturday night, the Sky showed the game we got beat 1-0 at Tynecastle under Brendan Rodgers when Naismith done Johnny Hayes. Then Naismith was growling and snarling at everybody on the pitch.
Remember that.
And you look at that day, and nobody had to nobody stood up to Naismith that day. They let him away with it. And nothing's changed since then, apart from when Bruni was there, obviously. But now we've got to sign players who will actually, when something like that happens to Callum McGregor, we've got to have a pylon. We've got to have guys there that are willing to stand up. We all want us to play nice, brilliant football, but sometimes you've got to back up your teammates.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, because see the guys that can play nice football, I also want them to have a mentality, and a mentality that means I'm in this not just to play pretty football and hopefully we'll win the game, but it'll be through playing pretty football. That's brilliant. But I also want them to care. I want to care about their teammate alongside them. I want to care about the man in the trenches alongside them. I want them to be rolling their sleeves up and going, you're not going to do that. I have commented, and I've laughed at times, to be fair, Alan McGregor running at the halfway line. He's ran at the halfway line when a decision's been made more times than any keeper I've ever seen in my life. It's unbelievable. He'll fly out the box going nuts. But once he's going that far, what's the reaction of his teammates? They all do the same. And I think you get guys like Joe Hart, James McCarthy, Wise, older, who'll go, we know how to influence things. And it's not because we want cheating, by the way. It's you want the referee to see when they've made a mistake, and you want them to know you're going to get hounded every time you do. That's what we want. And it's not about cheating. I don't want Andy Aldi sent off because Celtic players have told him to. I want the referee to realise how bad it was. And if that means it's took that for the penny to drop, nothing wrong with that, And this side had that in abundance.
There was a lack of reaction. If there would have been an hysterical reaction from the Celtic side, there might have been a different outcome. Might have been, but then Brown Warrior, usual contributor, comes in. Ralston will put the boot in, but unfortunately for Tony Ralston, it's usually doing it the opposition's corner flag when the ball's going out for a corner. He decides to foul somebody. Brian Watt brings up a great point about Chris Sutton. What you'd give for a Chris Sutton in the team today could trust him to win the ball in the air in both boxes, and you could. He played a number of positions for Celtic.
Oh, I mean, it's not just in the air as well, Brian. As much as I agree with that, you look at how he used to bring the ball down on his chest, but while shielding. I mean, tonight's example was Jason DeVos. Absolute animal of a player, ripped. He was huge, and he could mix it. Fair enough. And Big Sutton and him have a great tussle, and he was one of those. Brian's absolutely right. I mean, you can win it in the air, but I also like the fact he could shield it, he could control the ball, because he was actually a good technician as well, Sutton. That was the thing.
Well, we'll get to Tannadice 2000, but I'll just bring up this by Jim Hannaway. Agree, Kevin Boyce. Play looks good, up tempo, just need a bit more dig, and we're there. Hopefully we get that, Jim. Hopefully that we do get that. Now, I want to talk about the kits. Dundee United.
Thank you. I'm glad you want to talk about the kits. Me too.
Right, on you go. You go first. Let's. You go first about the kits. What's your thoughts about the kits?
So obviously it's striking that both teams are playing in their away kit. Neither team needs to play in their away kit unless Dundee United I looked into it and I couldn't really find any reasons for it. I don't know if you've managed to, but Dundee United, it turns out, I presume they must have a tradition of when they started, because they were Dundee Hibernian, weren't they?
Yes.
But their first kit isn't a green kit either. So I presumed it was a homage to their first ever kit, but from what I read, it's not. And that season, that was nothing but just a bit of marketing, from what I've took from it, of their new away kit.
It wasn't an away kit, it was to celebrate the 100th anniversary.
They wore it as the away kit all year.
Did they wear it as the away kit all year?
All season they wore it as the away kit. There was an orange home kit. So yes, I did check it out, because I'm glad you brought it up, because it was like, and then I realised, Dundee United and Celtic, when they normally play at Tannadice, just both wear their home kits, but they're now both in their away kits, which told me it was a Dundee United decision. But there was 2 kits that year for Dundee United, and there still was an orange and black one, the green one.
I am sure it was something to do with their centenary, and that's why they wore it on the opening day of the season. Because, as you say, I think it was the centenary of when they were formed as Dundee Hibernian, and they wore this kit to celebrate that on the first day of the season. But then it got us to have a look at like the fantastic gold and green kit, which became synonymous with that season, which got better and better as that season went on. That kit was just utterly gorgeous, eh? So,
Kev, here's the big question. 2 kits with those tones take you back to 2 memories of the same era. What one do you want? That one, or the one Henrik scores in Boa Vista? Or the one Hartson scores at Celta Vigo? Because remember, it's the same toned kit, but one's got NTL, I think, is it Digital Home? Forget me if I'm wrong. Something like that. And that one's got the big NTL font, and they're slightly different in styles. Same format, obviously. I'm going to put my neck in line and say I much prefer the kit from 2000 to the one in 2003. What one brings back the better memories? Hard to say, because while Seville is such a monumental thing, this season is the seed getting planted for Seville. This season is when we realised, wow, we're huge again. And that top, it's gorgeous, but it does bring back. It's just, what you thinking?
For me, it's a 2000 kit every day of the week.
Right.
A 2000 kit every day of the week. I thought the 2003 kit was too busy. I think there was too much going on in it. The 2000 kit for me is just, when I think of Mark O'Neill's treble, I think of that kit.
Yeah,
I think of that kit. Come on the Hoops, another great Celtic channel. NTL Home Digital all day. So he goes for the 2000. He goes for the 2003 kit. But I bought only one of those kits, and it was the 2000 one. I never bought the 2003 kit.
The 2001 is a thing of beauty. But I mean, obviously, Come on the Hoops is quite right. I mean, the one from 2003, it just, you think of another wave of memories. Do you know what I mean? The team's evolved by then. But that kit was when we were almost in an expectancy that firstly the kit would be good and Celtic would be brilliant. In 2000, we didn't expect a gorgeous kit and an amazing team. It was all just, this is brilliant. Where did all this come from,
Hopefully, and something that you'll be able to read towards the end of this year, I talk about this kit in great length. So wow. I'll leave that out there.
Cool.
So the first goal that we actually that we scored that season comes to Henrik Larsson. It is Henrik Larsson, who's just returned from a broken leg, who went to the Euros that summer. I've just moved my microphone up, and came back. So this comes with Paul Lambert, European Cup winner. Paul Lambert breaks for the middle of the park. He gets clattered by David Hanna, who actually had left Celtic a year before and went back to Dundee United. Funnily enough, Hannah's career after Dundee United took him to Cyprus,
Yep.
Ross County, St Johnstone, Bury, Brecon and Montrose afterwards. So he got a bit after that. So
He certainly did.
he brings down Paul Lambert and gets booked after Larsson scores. The ball breaks to Sutton and Sutton goes into the box and he squares the ball to Henrik Larsson, who's on the corner of the right-hand side of the box. Sutton gets taken out as well by Jason DeVos at the edge of the box. And Larsson, first time, curls the ball into the bottom corner. It's a great goal. An absolute peachy goal.
Some interesting points on it. Sutton, as running or trying to run past Jason DeVos, does a step over with his left foot. You know, R9 material. That's what I was seeing, Kev. You know, he does a step over which you just don't really associate with Sutton. The ball sort of breaks to Henrik. Henrik, who's uncommonly for him, got his shirt hanging out that game as well. You don't remember Henrik Larsson playing with his shirt?
I wrote that down. That's the first thing I noticed. I went, his shirt's on out.
Aye, it's really noticeable. But the finish, I mean, this is not meant to be strong foot. This is his left foot, which we know he could do it with both. But, I mean, that is absolute instinct. And at this point, Henrik's came back as a god, because we've always said, and not because, I mean, his career had already started to go on a trajectory at Celtic that was putting him up there anyway. But then absence, as we spoke about, makes the heart grow fonder. Henrik came back on a magic carpet, basically. Do you know what I mean? From 10 months out. And I think he actually embraced that pressure. I think he went, I'm the man, eh? And you just look at the confidence. This is the first game of the season. And you look at that off the cuff way of doing it with the left peg.
Oh, brilliant.
Wow.
It's a great goal. I'm going to bring up a couple of comments here, Russell.
Yes.
Michelle Lee, let's try and be a bit positive about the signings today, guys, instead of booting ourselves in the homos. We were positive about the signings at the start of the show, so I can't think we can be anything else. No. Jim Hannaway actually brings up a great point, and this is true. Did Hannah not go up for a medal with a Gers top one time? Yes, he did. When Dundee United, I think, won the Scottish Cup in 1994.
Yes.
He collected his winner's medal wearing a Rangers top.
There's two ways of that. We could go really deep on that, Kev, right, and go, oh, I mean, that must make him like that. Or see if you just don't support Celtic or Rangers, right? You don't give us stuff about them. I've seen plenty of times teams in other tops. I'll give you an example. When Gascoigne scores that goal when he lobs it over Hendry in Euro 96, he walks off the game in a Scotland jersey.
Aye.
Sometimes folk don't get it. David Hanna was 20 at that point as well, because he was born in 1974, and I know that for a fact, because I'm weird with the years of births. So he was maybe 19, maybe 20. And I actually struggle with that mindset of, how is he meant to know I'm going to sign for Celtic in 2 years? Why does he necessarily need to care about Celtic or Rangers?
I would counter that by saying Dundee United won the Scottish Cup for the first time in their history. Why would you even think about swapping your top?
Naivety, mate. I made a lot of mistakes at 20 years old. And if I had won a Scottish Cup in the midst of it, my ego would be out of control. Maybe his was too.
I've seen you on this podcast, mate. Jesus. I wouldn't want to see you winning the Scottish Cup. I'm going to bring up Keith come on the hoops again. Right after this, Martin O'Neill, we saw the what became the iconic Martin O'Neill jump. So Keith come on the hoop says, can't beat Martin wearing socks tucked into tracky bottoms, that jump. It's a great jump. If you ever try to do it, well, I tried to do it. Well, it is a leap, eh? It's like a salmon. It's a salmon returning to its spawning ground.
Do you know what's mad? Martin O'Neill was dressed up as Brian Clough. Right? But I don't know at that age who Brian Clough is, so I don't see that at all. I look back and went, he's dressing up as his favourite manager. See, when I seen Paul Lambert do the same thing and dressing up as Martin O'Neill, I thought, you're this, what are you doing, man? Even, remember Paul Lambert cut about wearing glasses for a while? Or you could just tell he didn't need them. But that all aside, I mean, that's just a wee observation. But I mean, O'Neill's leap was, you're absolutely right. What he was also doing then, and I know, I don't get me wrong, I don't think he could help it, but subconsciously he completely was engaging with the fans, because you realise you had someone in there who cared just as much, if not more than we did. You know, all his ego and his gravitas and all that was put to one side in those moments. He lost all social awareness because he was that buzzing at Celtic scoring. I think that really resonated with supporters.
It did. It was some jump. I mean, if you've ever tried to replicate the jump, it's extremely difficult to do when you actually try and do it. So it must be like, for me, it just must be the pure adrenaline and emotion of the jump that makes them actually do it. I mean, I'm 45. If I tried to do it now, I would probably end up smashing my 2 kneecaps and be carried off to the Forth Valley Hospital to spend about 6 weeks in a wheelchair. Brown Warrior comes in again. The chav look before it was a thing. It's a still game Neds, eh? It's a still game Neds, look. So he comes back in. Seriously, every dealer in my tune dresses like Martin O'Neill in that game round here. Oh, Martin O'Neill inspired a generation of Neds. We never actually thought about that.
We never knew. Who knew?
Oh, brilliant. We'll go into the second half. I'm not even going to talk about the Dundee United goal, because I think your second goal is like it's a force of nature. It's a relentless goal when you actually watch it, from us getting the corner kick to the ball ending up in the back of the net. It's like Dundee United are like a boxer on the ropes, just getting pummeled, and eventually you're going down. Eventually this ball is going into the back of the net. And again, as you say, your mind does play tricks on you, because I thought it was in the last 10 minutes as well. I really did think it was in the last 10 minutes. Aye. I never went to this game. I did have a ticket for this game, but I never went. The reason being, I'd started a new job and I was going 6 weeks. I was going from weekly pay to monthly pay, and I was going 6 weeks without wages. And I probably made my first ever adult decision in my life to say I can't go to this game, because basically I've got no money to actually go to this game. So if I look back on it, that's probably my first ever adult decision where Celtic didn't come before everything. As it turned out, I got paid that Friday before the game on the Sunday, and I could have went anyway, but I'd already gave up my ticket. It wasn't brilliant at the time, but I still jumped about the Newmarket, because I watched this game in the pub, the Newmarket in Bannockburn, and we went absolutely mental at this goal. So this goal, we get a corner kick, and Stan Petrov swings it in. It's funny to see Stan Petrov taking corner kicks as well in this game. Petrov wasn't
taking quite a few.
I kind of.
He used to always go near post. It used to drive me bonkers. See what and later on, honestly, whenever you seen Petrov over the corner kick, he would always try and whip it right to the near post. Oh, I remember him taking plenty.
Maybe that's my mind playing. Maybe that's just my mind playing tricks on me again.
I didn't like him taking them, I'll be honest.
So strangely, you should say this. This corner actually is a short corner, and we try to play it in the second time, and it gets cleared out to the halfway line. Jackie Mack picks it up and tries to play a ball through to Larsson. Larsson oversteps the ball, and the ball gets cleared again. Lambert then plays it to Alan Stubbs, and Stubbs crosses it into the back post. And there's a bit of a stramash at the back post when Sutton jumps with divorce from the ball.
Yes.
And it kind of half gets cleared again to the edge of the box. at the edge of the box, wee Jackie Max ran for the half-wide line to follow the ball in, and he hits the ball in the half volley. And Alan Kuhn, actually, it's a like fantastic save. And
Another one.
It's another brilliant save. So as this ball's bouncing away, us as a support, the support in the shed behind the goal are all going, oh, that's that chance away. Stefan Maye then bursts in, and the commentator says it's a cross. I think it's a shot. He actually has. So Maye rifles the ball towards goal, and Sutton, who's managed to get back on his feet after the sort of stramash that he's had with DeVos, has a wee wrestling match with him and tucks the ball in at the back post to cue absolute bedlam. But for the corner kick to the goal, it is 45 seconds of constant Celtic pressure. Dundee United were never withstanding that. Never withstand. And I reckon Dundee United actually thought they got away with it when Combe made that save. I thought they thought, that's us, we're out of here now. We're going to, our luck has changed.
It's hard to say because, to be totally honest to you, the amount of saves Combe had made by then, if you look at the ones in the first half, there might have been a wee bit of you thinking, it's our night. Do you know what I mean? Because he is having a superhuman game at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is with Sutton, when he scores at that back post, it is just Sutton at his best, going, I want that ball more than you, and I am stronger than you. Because Sutton would wrestle you at that point in time, would have wrestled with anyone to win a ball like that. That was just he was great at doing things like that. And again, we've always spoke about like do you know what I mean? Like players getting off on the right foot, strikers joining the club, starting with a goal. Scott Sinclair being such a glaring one in my mind. Dembele with that penalty, which I think was the anniversary, it was shared today against, I think it was Astana or something like that. Make your debut, score early. Sutton's not only just scored early, it turns out to be a winner. That is the foot to get off on, isn't it? That is how you start your career if you're going to be a forward, is get off at that, and the doubts are all just getting further and further eradicated. And I think you're absolutely right. The 45 seconds thing, or a minute, however long it was, the word does relentless there. Utterly relentless. And it shows that there's been an attitude shift already. This is game day one. And we're basically playing after only 65 minutes, right? Even though the first half, by the way, was wave after wave, 65 minutes, there's almost a desperation to get back in front, like a league title depends on it. That's how it felt. And that's what Martin O'Neill, how quick he was at instilling that in the team that he had at the time, which when you look at it, as you said at the start of the show, only has debutants Jos Valharin and Chris Sutton.
The team that day...
Martin O'Neill has got a reaction of everyone else in the squad. And a lot of them, you look at the likes of Ayal Berkovic, who started that game, probably know they ain't going to last. They probably know, because Martin O'Neill doesn't mince his words, that you might not be the guy for me long term. But yet you've got a team pulling in the same direction and understand what the manager's trying to teach them. And yes, he's on his own. But guess what? He only got his assistant manager, Walford, that week, like you just said.
You wouldn't get John Robertson for another couple of weeks after that. The Celtic team that day, that I didn't read out earlier on, was Gould, Stubbs, Valharn, Tom Boyd, Stefan Maye, Jackie Mack, Paul Lambert, Eyal Berkovic, who was replaced with Tommy Johnson on 64 minutes, Stan Petrov, Larsson and Sutton up front. The subs were Stuart Kerr, bizarrely enough, Bobby Petter, Oliver Tebley and Matt Burchell. That was the bench that night. So, but look at that front two, Larsson and Sutton. What a front two. A front two that we'll struggle to ever see better in our lifetime anyway, of a perfect partnership. I think he's just as potent as Henrik Larsson at this time for Celtic. I think the sign of looking back, when the story's now complete and there's full stops and the book's been printed and stuff like that, Chris Sutton was a statement signing by Martin O'Neill, and he was just as important to Martin O'Neill as Henrik Larsson, even though Chris Sutton will never admit that.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's unsurprising that in the foreword of Chris Sutton's book that I was telling you I've read, his autobiography, it is done by none other than Henrik Larsson. Not surprising, is it? Because, you know, as much as Sutton would never like say, oh, it was all down to Henrik. Henrik Larsson's someone who will 100% acknowledge that Chris Sutton took his game to that next level. It's a partnership that you look back on that was actually enhanced by Hartson. But that we'll do that in another show. But the first time ever you seen the three of them together was at Ewood Park. And that's when you realised, oh, we're now playing a completely different tune here. You know, all three, it turns out, can play together. And that is 100% down the intelligence, in particular, of Sutton's football brain. And as much as Henrik obviously had one as well, was a genius, Sutton seemed always to know where Henrik Larsson would be. You could blindfold him and you would know where Henrik Larsson, when he was making his run, you know, what direction he's going in, where I'm flicking it to behind my back. It was just a colossal partnership. And as I say, you always have to look at the start. And the start was a good one. Both players were both scorers. And they just felt between them, we're on to something here.
Definitely. The best partnership I've seen watching Celtic in my lifetime. I saw a lot of partnerships in the 80s. As I say, Brian McClare was my favourite player in the 80s, and I thought he was a great striker, but I can't really remember a partnership like this.
No.
Which changed a movement of a club. Actually, like the foundation of our club was built on they two up front, and the success that we had under Martin O'Neill was built definitely on they two. And he had a great nickname, and we called him the evil genius just because of his persona of, like, I mean, he was a bit of a playboy when he was younger. And some of the stories, if you actually Google Chris Sutton at the times he was at Norwich and that, he was a bit of a playboy. I think his wife was a glamour model as well. I think she was a Sun Page 3 model as well. Go. And he was a bit of a bad boy, and he actually admits that himself, that he admits that. Then when he came up to Scotland, he stayed on a farm. He had pigs and chickens. And
I remember that.
He's just sort of flipped his whole. He's now like he was now insular. He wasn't the outgoing guy that he was down in London, and it's fantastic. And we got the benefit. We got the best years of Chris Sutton, and Chris Sutton admits that his best time in his football career was at Celtic. And for Chris Sutton to come out and say that the best striker he's ever played with is Henrik Larsson, when he's played with Alan Shearer, who's probably one of the best strikers that Britain's produced in the last how many years.
Yeah,
that's testament to Henrik. And it's not just because Chris Sutton didn't like Alan Shearer and they liked Henrik. I think that was really like
just a fact.
It was a fact. Yes, it was a fact.
It's just a fact.
I love Sutton. I still like him now. Sometimes I think he plays to the gallery quite a bit. But hey, everybody's got to make a buck here and there. Eh? So they've got to do something to keep the bailiffs for the door.
I agree with most of the things he says as a pundit, I'll be honest to you. And it wouldn't be right to do Screamacelica without promoting the YouTube video of him phoning in Clyde 1 when it's, I think it's Jerry McCulloch actually of Celtic TV now who's hosting, and it's Derek Johnson who's the pundit, and Sutton phones. This video is 7.5 minutes. I implore anyone to type into YouTube tonight. We'll talk about music and all that, and we want you to listen to songs, but Screamacelica is just all about that. If you do anything tonight,
it's about anything we want it to be.
Chris Sutton, Derek Johnson, Clyde 1. Oh, it's the best thing ever. Anyone that can say to Derek Johnson, you're a puppet, you're a charlatan, you're a party political broadcaster, Derek. Just tell the truth.
The thing is, it's quite obvious that Big Chris is an intelligent guy and he can handle himself in situations like that. I mean, you've seen him. I mean, he does 606. Is it still called 6-on-6, or is it still
I think so.
Is it still called 6-on-6?
6-on-6, I think it's still called.
I mean, you hear him on that, and he can own anybody. He can really own anybody on that. Any pundit, you see him on the BBC and that. You see him on like BT. He can actually own anybody. He's got a comment for anybody, and he can back it up. Paul's told the story before. He went to Hamilton one night when BT were doing Celtic v Hamilton, and to see behind the scenes at BT what BT were doing. And he says Chris Sutton was so well prepared, it was frightening. He was the only one that he saw sitting with notes, going through. He had done his homework, and he was sitting going through the notes of the teams and all the homework that he'd done. And he says, on the other hand, you had somebody like Alan McCoist who appeared 5 minutes before kickoff. Like, that's just my irrational Alan McCoist hatred coming in there again, but I'm allowing that to slip. So I love Big Sutton. I think he's a Celtic great. I'm not saying legend. He's a great. He made a major part in this football club in the 20th century, the 21st century, in Martin O'Neill's time. So for me, I'll always love him. I've always loved Chris Sutton, and he's more than welcome to come on and talk music with us, but I think what kind of music that he would be into. It's quite difficult to tell, eh?
That is hard to tell.
I mean,
I've got a feeling he might be quite dad rock, you know, like I think he might listen to, like, you know, the 20 biggest motorway songs ever or something like that, you know what I mean, and think that's music. I don't think it'd be particularly cool. Jim,
better an impersonation, boys. Barca boys, get. I may as well bring up the good ones, boys. Great impression.
Yeah, just stick with the good ones. I'll go sleep tonight, mate.
Drew comes in. Oh, no, that was
a big toff.
So, Suey's calling you a big toff.
No, he's called Sutton a big toff.
Oh, no, I think he's calling you a big toff. I think.
No, Suey's not calling me a bit. No, Suey, well, he's not calling me a big toff.
Here's the one that. Here's the comment that I wanted to bring up. It was saying that he's into. Oh, there it's power ballads. Drew says he's probably into power. Journey, more.
Journey, yeah. Born to be Wild in that. I could hear him listening to stuff like that. You know what I mean?
He's got a Top Gear album, ain't he?
He's
definitely got a Top Gear album, eh?
Yeah.
If Chris Sutton wants to come on and prove us wrong, then we'll more than happily take him up on it. We'll go to music now, and we talk about. I need to bring this up with Quad, but he likes rebel tunes, Kev. Maybe he does. Maybe he does.
You never know.
We'll need to ask him what's his favourite rebel tune if we ever get to speak to him. We'll go on to this other legend of the musical fair, who actually had a Celtic link. He did have a Celtic link, which we'll get onto. Bob Marley's compilation album, Legend, was in the chart this week. Okay? And it had, at this point, had spent 410 weeks in the charts since it was released in 1984. In total, it spent 987 weeks in the charts. This album is an utter classic. Legend was released in 1984, and it was a collection of Bob Marley's singles. And what a belter of an album! And
great listen to that today.
It's a brilliant listen. It's a great listen. It's amazing how much cultural significance Bob Marley actually has in this country. It is an unbelievable. I mean, every song on this is a classic. Every song you could play it to any generation, and they'll go, "I know that song." He brought reggae music to the masses. They crossed over. I first remember Bob Marley, and my dad, who will be watching this, by the way, my dad used to sell hooky tapes, right? A guy used to deliver these tapes to the house, and my dad would sell them in the pub, right? So like pirate tapes, right? And so my dad used to take orders, and he used to have a sheet, and he would take the orders and all of that. And the 2 albums that were his biggest seller were, he'll probably come back to me and tell me you're wrong. He'll probably phone me the now, forgetting that I'm on air, to tell me that I'm wrong here. But the 2 albums that I can actually remember that were his biggest seller were Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, the album Born in the USA, and Bob Marley, Legend, were his two biggest dodgy tape sellers. So I got to know Bob Marley. This is my first introduction to Bob Marley. And it was quite weird. I've mentioned the Newmarket before. And there is a picture, and I'll post a picture on Twitter if I find it again. And there's a whole load of us all sitting at the back of, not the beer garden, but it was like the cellar. But basically, if it was nice, they kicked open the fire exit, and everybody went and sat out the back on the beer kegs and all of that. So like an unofficial beer garden.
Brilliant.
And I remember that, like, you could hear Status Quo and Bob Marley in the same afternoon, played from start to finish.
I like that though.
And like it just shows you how much Bob Marley, there's a big cultural significance of Bob Marley. Which obviously you've got the Jamaican top on, I need to bring this up. Brown Warrior, Debbie Does Dallas. No, they weren't the type of tapes. They were music tapes. Brown Warrior. They were music tapes. Aye, Russell. Sorry, I interrupted there.
No, not at all. I mean, it's funny you were saying about doing the pirate cassettes. I mean, I did a bit of that myself at high school. Remember the old Napster world?
Yes.
So I don't know. I'll not quote my mate's name because I don't want him in trouble. But he must have had in 2003, I mean, at that sort of time, the best broadband that you could ever imagine, because he was downloading full albums, mixed CDs, selling to me for £1, and I was selling them at school for £1.75. I always look back, Kevin, and ask myself why I wasn't doing it for £2. It was like an inner guilt in me that I couldn't bring myself just to do double the markup. So I'm cutting about, instead of jotters in my school bag, just this big pile of CDs. But the boy would do the album cover and that on a bit of paper. He'd like print it off. So we're wiring through his parents' broadband usage, their printer inkjet, and I'm just going to school forgetting all my homework. But I've got a business to run by this point. I'm 14 years old, mate. I've got lunch to buy. You know what I mean? I can't go to the chippy every day if I've not. You know what I mean? How am I going to afford chips and cheese if I don't shift some of these albums today? The Hives are on fire now. Someone's bound to buy it. There you go, $1.75 in the back pocket.
The Hives is a good album, by the way. The Hives was a good album, right?
Aye, sorry, just when you said that, it took me back to glory days. About Bob Marley album. Do you know, Simon, when we decided we were doing it, when I thought listening to it, I am amazed I knew every single song. Songs started bringing back memories that I genuinely had forgotten, Kev, if that makes sense. That, oh, hi. Because you just think of, I mean, there's one I know you do, like the spoken word and all that. And to me, the bit in Could You Be Loved is very much like spoken word when the female vocalist comes in. The road of life is rocky. You may stumble too. So why unpoint the finger at someone else who's judging you? And we feel a bit like that, you know, when we do the streets, you know? We point the finger at someone else, you know what I mean?
I know.
You get up there and try it. You know what I mean? So it's like that. Listening to that bit got me going today. And then there was another song called Waiting in Vain.
Yes.
Greg Taylor, who is booked to play A State of Mind Unplugged at the end of next month. I'm really excited. You'll know who that is. Surely the GT Booze Band for Stirling.
Yes, I do know who he is. He's not the Celtic left back, people.
No, not the Celtic left back. If he's playing State of Mind Unplugged, that would be funny. Gary Mackay-Stevens on the drums. But no, he did a version of that acoustic in my pub, and I remember instantly going, I want to know what that song is. I didn't know it was a Bob Marley cover or anything. I just loved their version. And then when that came on today, it took me back to those memories, which I thought was really cool as well. I mean, obviously, you've got the likes of No Women, No Cry and all that, which is a live version. And the funniest thing about that song is the big bit of feedback at one point that happens on the microphone. But no, just tremendous songs today. There's another one he did that Liam Gallagher covered, and there's always a Liam Gallagher connection as much as there is a Celtic one with me. I'm trying to think what the name is though, and I cannot think of it.
I know John Power covered Redemption Song. I've heard John Power Fricast's version of Redemption Song.
Paul might know if he's watching. There was, I promise you, Liam did a really good version. I think he wanted to record it. I don't know if he ever did, but he did it live a few times.
Well, Sue, who is Liam in an Oasis tribute back, comes in and says, Natural Mystic.
Yes. He should know. I mean, he's the lead singer of Stop the Clocks.
Yes, so that's what it says. He plays Liam. One of the funniest things about Sue, we went to see Stop the Clocks one night, and after he had done the Oasis set, he says, I'm going to do some cover versions. I just started killing myself laughing. You've been doing cover versions all night, mate. Come on.
I know. I remember Sue. I used to get Sue to play in my pub, obviously, Kev, right? And some nights he would just come down. I don't know if he was just sussing out. I've maybe had a few and going, I'll get away with this here. He would just sit down and go, Boyce, kind of weird because what I'm going to do tonight is I'm just going to play Be Here Now, start to finish, on the acoustic guitar, the full album. I'm like, great idea. Completely forgetting that there's probably a few couples sitting in there, you know what I mean, who are in their 50s going, I thought I know some of the songs he's playing. I've got him playing I Hope I Think I Own That. That was great.
They're not here to actually hear Magic Pie, definitely no. Paul's brought up the comment, Bob Marley was a Celtic fan. And this is a well-known fact. His son, Ronan, done an interview with the Celtic View. And Paul comes in. Remember when his son Ronan took to Twitter to verify that picture I posted? So Paul posted a picture of Ronan sitting on Bob's shoulders with a Celtic top on. And Ronan done an interview in the Celtic View where he admits that Bob was a massive Celtic fan. And when he toured Europe, he used to bring back VHS copies of the highlights of Celtic games.
That's amazing.
And he would tell Ronan about Jock Stein and he would tell Ronan about the Lisbon Lions. And in 1980, I've got it written down here. Anyway, 1981, I think, he bumped into Dixie Deans in Australia. And Dixie Deans didn't have a clue who he was. And Bob Marley started talking to Dixie Deans about Celtic and how he wanted to play at Celtic Park and how he knew all about Jock Stein. And Dixie Deans was taken aback that this guy, this megastar knew about Celtic all the way in Jamaica. I went to Jamaica in 2006. Was it 2006? I can't remember. It was my 40th birthday anyway. No, it was my 30th birthday. Jesus, that was a long time. That was my 30th birthday. And we done a day trip to Jamaica. We're on a cruise, Caribbean cruise. And we went to, I'm sounding like a Tory bastard there, I went on a Caribbean cruise, Champagne socialist, man. Anyway, so we went to Jamaica and everybody was going to this waterfall and we decided to do the Bob Marley tour, which took us up to Bob Marley's grave in 9 Mile. Way up the top of the mountains. So we basically drove all the way up this mountain. In Jamaica, I've never seen such poverty in my life. It was just after a major storm and the place had been decimated. But all the kids all had school uniforms and they were all chasing the bus and all of that. And it turns out that the Bob Marley Foundation made sure that every kid went to school, had a school meal and had a uniform. So the Bob Marley Foundation paid for everything to make sure the kids in Jamaica got an education. Fantastic. So we went up the top and I had a retro Celtic top on. And when we went into like there's like a compound that you go into, and you're going into the compound, and this boy offered me a bag of grass, a carrier bag full of grass for what worked out to be like £2. If I'd have managed to get it back on the boat, I would have took it, but there was no way I was getting it back on the boat. So I would have made a fortune back here with it. Anyway, the tour guide was, let's say, no on this planet. And he had this big hearty laugh and like a big long beard, the dreadlocks and that. And he saw my Celtic top and he went, Bob's favourite team.
No way.
He did, and we got to see it. And where his tomb is, there's a football in the tomb. There's a football sitting on top of the tomb as well. It was fantastic. It was a great trip, and I'm actually quite glad instead of going to see a stupid waterfall, I went to 9 Mile and saw the whole Bob Marley thing. The thing about it being on a Caribbean tour is like, yeah, you hear Bob Marley for a fortnight. You hear Bob Marley constantly because the band on the boats just play Bob Marley. That was great. What the Bob Marley Foundation does for Jamaica is brilliant. Really brilliant. It's really good. And always, anytime I hear about Jamaica on the news, if there's been a hurricane or anything like that, I always fear after seeing it. It's like, I wonder how these plantations, the plantations have all got strange herb plants on the end of crops and all of that, but I often wonder how these farmhouses and all of that survive. Basically, when I hear about a hurricane and that being there, and it's a rough place. It is a right rough place. We went through this village, and all the guys were just hanging out outside this cavern. And I says to the bus driver, "What's happening there?" He says, "Oh, they're waiting on one of the plantation owners to stop and say, I've got 2 hours work, and one of them will jump on the van and go."
Wow.
He says that's what they do on a daily basis. It was really quite eye-opening to watch, to actually see. But fair play to the Bob Marley Foundation. I'm actually quite glad I've done it. It's one of my greatest trips to see the Bob Marley tomb. And right away the tour guide went, Bob's favourite team.
That's quality, Kev. That is quality. That's not the only music you've been listening to this week.
What's that?
That's not the only music you've been listening to this week, though, apparently.
No, it isn't. Before I get on to that, there was a couple of folk wanting us to speak about heavy metal, right? There was an album came out this week by a heavy psychedelic rock band called The Heads, called Everybody Knows We Got Nowhere. It sounds like the Stooges, MC5, the Spacemen 3. They're a cult band from Bristol. So any of the metalheads that are in the comments or listening to us or watching us, have a listen to this. It's probably the heaviest that I get listening to stuff. But it's great music if you feel like ritualistic killing a hamster or something like that and put it on in the background. It's really good. It's heavy psychedelic. If you like the Stooges, you like MC5, you like the Heads. So that's my recommendation of an album for this week. Now, everybody knows that State of Mind's just not a Celtic state of mind. We're our own YouTube channel. We've got other shows. We've got music shows. And over the last couple of weeks, couple of months even, we've had plenty of State of Mind Unplugged sessions. So the day I actually watched the one for the 12th of June, and it was by a band called The Raz, RAHS, for Preston Pans, whose debut album is now out, When Does It Become Real? And it's a great session, an absolutely fantastic session, great interview with the lads. And after watching, I had never heard any of their music before, never, until this acoustic session. And their album's on my playlist for tomorrow when I'm at work, to actually listen to their album. The acoustic session's that good. So I would recommend everybody goes to listen to that as well. On Saturday, Friday there, we had Rhiannon Downey. Who was a sensation over the Euros, doing a cover version of Scotland songs, Flower of Scotland and stuff like that.
It was Caledonia.
Caledonia she done, eh? So she's been there as well. And who's on this week? Is it Robin Smith? Is
Robin Smith on this week. We've got the diary booked up. I mean, it's been amazing to be. I mean, please don't think I'm heavily involved. I mean, but I have played like a tiny part in helping book the odd act. But see, being there watching, I watch Brian Cattigan, who'll be further down the line, his show go out. See, being like, just like having the headphones on, watching him play live, make sure the sound levels are all right, and seeing live music again, Kev, for the first time in, I was shudder to think how long, 20 months, 21 months that I've seen a guy with a microphone strumming a guitar, I mean, let alone a band, but the stuff that's happening in that studio right now is really exciting, and I think it's important that on this old Screamacelica, we are the bridge. We talk about the football, we talk about memories, and then whilst the State of Mind does music stuff, it only feels right that we talk about that. And you're absolutely right, Rhiannon Downey's performance on Saturday is a joke, absolutely outstanding, and comes over really, really well. And there's the other one recommendation I would have. The other one I would have is Brooke Combe. I know the Raz has been maybe one that really caught your eye, amongst others. By the way, I'm not saying anyone poor, but I've got to say, Brooke Combe, unbelievable. She
is going to be massive.
Aye, there's just no two ways. There's no two ways. That's star quality thing. I get the same vibe of both the girls, that they've both got presence as much as they've got the talent and the skill and the singing ability. I'm really excited for the acts that are booked ahead as well. I think Saturday night 8 PM on A State of Mind could become a very big deal, because one of these acts so far that have played, or one of the ones we've got booked, are either already potentially huge or are going to be huge. And once you go into the channel, that's my mate Shawnee Sherman, who I've referred to on this many a time. He actually messaged me at the weekend and says, I spent all night last night and the first hour of this morning watching every single State of Mind music show. Every one of them he's watched. And he is a music fan, right? That is what he does. And he goes, absolutely brilliant. So definitely, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. But the Raz set is a joke. Brilliant as well.
It's good. It's really, really good. Check out their album. I'm going to be checking out their album the more. Daniel Mack comes in and says the Downey one needed to be longer. It easily could have listened to an hour. That's what we're looking for. We're spreading out. Me and Russell have spoke a few times. If we ever get to do this in the studio, we are going to have a live act in the studio to play us out, to tell us to shut up, and for them to play us out. Eh?
The first strum you hear, you'll know we've been told to shut up. No, totally, man.
So I think that'll do us the night, Russell. I think I've had a good night. It's been a good laugh as usual. Tuesday night madness. So everybody, just be kind to each other. Peace and love, and I'll see you all.